The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series Doctor Who, and today we're discussing the 12th Doctor story, Into the Dalek. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going, Dom?
Very well, thanks. And Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, remember to like The Secrets of Doctor Who on Facebook, where we're at facebook.com/Secrets of Doctor Who, and also follow us on Twitter, where we're at SQPN. We'd love to see you there and hear your comments on what we're talking about. Also, we want to tell you about another show on the network you're sure to enjoy called The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows, where we review all kinds of other old and new movies and other shows and that sort of thing. You can check it out wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/secrets. So we're talking about Into the Dalek. Jimmy, can you give us a quick recap of this episode?
It's the far future, and a group of rebel humans have an injured Dalek on their spaceship. The Dalek seems to be good, and it wants to kill all Daleks, so the humans want to help it. They send the Doctor and Clara into the Dalek by miniaturizing them so they can help heal it. We thus get a Fantastic Voyage Doctor Who Dalek edition. When the Doctor repairs the Dalek, it also returns to being evil. It contacts its fellow Daleks, and they start invading the human spaceship and exterminating people. But the Doctor is able to reawaken the memories that led the Dalek to being good in the first place, and he mentally bonds with it and makes the change permanent. The Dalek then sees into the Doctor's mind and realizes how deeply he hates the Daleks. The Dalek decides that this hatred is right, and it betrays its fellow Daleks and exterminates them. It then tricks the remaining Daleks into retreating and goes with them so it can kill them too. The Doctor, who is unsure whether he is a good man, is not happy about the fact that the Dalek saw such hatred in his soul. In other news, it's with this episode that the Doctor starts being a super colossal jerk towards anyone who is a soldier, and in this episode, Clara meets and begins a romantic relationship with former soldier Danny Pink. So the stage is now set for lots of hypocritical overacting on the Doctor's part. The end.
Yeah. A little editorializing there in the end, but that was going to come up. Because when we had first talked about this episode, that was a big element that came up where we talked about how the Doctor just seemed grumpy. It was very, we have that, fat pope, thin pope thing where we had a very happy-go-lucky Doctor in the 11th Doctor, and now they've decided to go with grumpy Doctor, and the next Doctor, the 13th Doctor, is back to happy-go-lucky Doctor. I kind of wish they would find another personality thing to switch back and forth with.
Well, they are somewhat. One of the things they wanted for this Doctor was not grumpiness in particular, but alienness. Because he can't be your boyfriend if, given the age disparity between the actor they've chose to cast for the Doctor and the actress they've chose to cast for the companion. He's the public's not ready for that kind of age disparity, romantic toying with each other. And that means he needs to have something else he's bringing to the table. And they decide, let's go back to the alien thing like we had with Tom Baker, the most popular Doctor in his day of all time. And yeah, he's like Tom Baker without the charisma.
And that's not to say that he doesn't get better, because
he gets better, but this is another flawed execution out the gate. This is Sixth Doctor light.
Right. I was going to say this one feels a lot more Sixth Doctor than Fourth Doctor. Father
and of course, kind of watching it back, watching it, second time, third time, or whatever. The grumpiness isn't quite as off-putting to me. It's just what he's grumpy about more is the context. And like you mentioned, Jimmy, about how he's become very militant in his anti-military. Yeah. If you're ex-soldier, you can't come with me because you were a soldier. The Brigadier is calling. Oh wait, he's died
Yeah.
by this time. But you know, it. And as a reminder, the Brigadier is technically considered a companion because he has traveled in the TARDIS a couple of times. So
Yes, multiple times.
multiple times. So, and the Brigadier was regularly said to be the Doctor's closest friend. So,
Yes, I mean the Brigadier unit; those are all parts of the Doctor's past, and even with
Big ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
I suppose with the 10th Doctor, we had a little bit of his grumpiness at unit back when we saw that coming back the first time, but this takes it to a whole nother level, and it just seems out of character. I mean, if you could say that the Doctor across incarnations has a set character, it does
Yeah.
feel a little much.
Well,
Like they're
if they
going
wanted
for
to-
something.
I mean, it'd be one thing if he said, you know, having soldiers around reminds me too much of what I did during the Time War or something like that. Then you
Yeah.
explain it. But no, this is just like, I hate you because you're a soldier or an ex-soldier. Because we'll see
Yeah.
it with Danny Pink later on, too.
And I had to wonder about what is in Stephen Moffat's head, because he's got an audience, and that audience is made up of families, and lots of the people in the families are going to either have been military
Mm-hmm.
or are military or have a close family member who is military.
Yep.
And dude, you're insulting your own audience. What is
Right.
up here?
And I mean, I'll admit that probably part of my passion is the fact is I am a veteran of the military, of the Air Force. So I technically wasn't a soldier, but I'm sure I would be lumped in with that. And so that's kind of part of my personal passion as well.
I mean, giving Moffat the benefit of the doubt, maybe it's not that he's personally expressing an anti-military, personal view, but where he wants to set up character conflict and drama with Danny Pink entering into Clara's life, and that way, when he shows up on the TARDIS, that becomes a point of dramatic tension on the TARDIS.
Okay, let's see how well that works when we just change the job to something else that's I don't know, more or less common, but on a similar level. How about the Doctor becomes militantly anti-teacher?
Yeah.
Just any
Right.
teacher. You're a professor, you're a grade school teacher, you're doing the devil's work. I hate you. Okay, is Stephen Moffat going to do that for his audience? Just for the sake of building drama among characters?
I could see it. I mean, the Doctor does get kind of a little dismissive of maths teachers later on.
No. I'm talking the same thing. So not just a couple of snarky remarks in one episode, but a multi-season arc of ragging on teachers.
Yeah.
No, I see what you're saying. I'm not, and I don't think that what he does is the right way to go. But just to giving the benefit of the doubt, it may not be that he's personally anti-military, but that he's he's barked up the wrong tree. I think with his dramatic tension.
Yeah, I don't know that. I think I wouldn't propose that Stephen Moffat is personally anti-military. Just that he's a woke opportunist.
Sure. I mean it's an easy target of to set up the military as the big bad guy. And again, as we've noted, it's a bit hypocritical for the Doctor to go there, especially given that we've just come off of the 50th anniversary special with the War Doctor, and the fact that the Doctor himself has, and so you can say self-hatred or whatever, but it just doesn't. It feels wrong for him to be this militantly anti-military at so quickly, such a big change. Yeah. So
it also feels wrong for him to be suddenly questioning his own fundamental morality. You know, Clara, tell me, am I a good man or not? It's just like, dude, you've been a good man more times than people can shake a stick at. You're kind of known for it.
And they even had an episode named "A Good Man Goes to War." Well, that implies if he's going to war, he's a good man.
Right. Well, I mean, and that becomes the other overarching question of the season, which is, am I a good man? Is the Doctor a good man? And we kind of delve into that. And I don't know, it's very touchy-feely, I guess. And it's very nasal gazing of the Doctor. It's not a great place to go with this. I mean, outward focused sort of Doctor who's focused on others. That's a great story arc for a season, but this very internalized self-therapy. It wasn't a great way to lay out the first season of a new Doctor, frankly.
Yeah, and especially with Clara's belated counseling of, I don't know if you're a good man or not, but I think trying is the important thing. Yes, Clara, that's exactly what you want to say to a potential psychopath.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, if one as powerful as the Doctor, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about another connection that this episode has, which is the first 2005 season episode, Dalek. Not only do they, this may come as a shock, but they both have Daleks in them. and more than that, they have single, trapped, vulnerable, semi-moral Daleks. And they involve questions of the Doctor's morality vis-a-vis Daleks. And both Daleks go on killing rampages, but then end up good. And both tell the Doctor he would be or is a good Dalek. So this is like a remake of that episode.
Yeah, just like the pitch. What was the guy on Screen Rant? The pitch meeting guy says.
Oh yeah, huh?
An homage is Command V, Command C.
Yeah.
Command
C, Command V.
Yeah, Command C, Command
Control V, Control C.
Yeah. Which
vice
is
versa.
Yeah, which is basically kind of what this is. It's a bit of a copy of that. I mean, you could call it an homage, but it bears striking resemblance. One thing I thought was strange though is that they didn't call back to Clara's time, the one version of Clara, as a Dalek. That there was because there were similarities, and the fact that she goes inside a Dalek, which is kind of what she was before. You know, it was very strange that they didn't bring that up.
I could understand them not wanting to bring that up for the sake of it being too confusing to the audience who may not have seen it. Because new Doctor, new audience is the hope. Yeah. And so you don't want to tie yourself too much too early on, tie yourself down that way. Also, from a diegetic perspective, that's a splinter off her at this point. So this Clara didn't experience being a Dalek.
Right. When she went into his timeline and got splintered and everything reset, sort of.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So one thing I should point out is I read that this idea of going inside, getting shrunk and going inside a Dalek was actually originally a pitch for a video game, a Doctor Who video game that never got made.
Oh.
And so Moffat went back and said, that actually would make a good story. So he decided to make it into a script for a show. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
See, I figured that Moffat had just watched, Fantastic Voyage and said, "Hey, let's do that with the Dalek instead."
Yeah.
And we thus got the obligatory fighting antibodies scene, because every time you do a remake of Fantastic Voyage, you have to do a fighting antibodies scene.
Which is we also saw when the Doctor went inside, the 10th Doctor, 11th Doctor went inside the giant replica of himself, with the shrunken people inside, which also had antibodies in it. So yeah, it's a trope. You have to do it.
And for people who may not be familiar, Fantastic Voyage was a movie from the 1960s, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
It starred Raquel Welch and other people.
Yeah.
And it involved a group of medical scientists being shrunk down in a tiny submarine and then being injected into a diplomat to save the diplomat's life and stop a world war or something important like that.
Yeah.
And any time, and this is kind of the thing in Hollywood history and Hollywood's imagination that drives this let's shrink people and put them inside other people thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It was a unique story at the time and groundbreaking in its special effects. I mean, people were really taken back by it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of stuck in the imagination of certain generations.
And it almost gets remade as frequently in science fiction as the Seven Samurai do.
Yes, that's right. So it starts with the doctor rescuing this pilot of this fighter that's being attacked by the Daleks called Journey. Her name is Journey Blue.
Oh, I know. She has the awesome name, Journey Blue. What an that is an awesome name.
That is an awesome name.
I love that name. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
Much better name than Danny Pink. And and they even hang a lantern on the pink blue soldier theme here.
Yeah.
Clara mentions, "Oh, I just met a soldier named Danny Pink," and it's like, anyway, Journey Blue is a great name.
Yeah,
and it's wasted on this character because she doesn't get to go with the doctor. I'd love a companion named Journey Blue. I'd love this actress as a companion named Journey Blue.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. It is well. Yeah, I mean that's sort of jumping to the end, but yeah, he does say, like we said before, he says, to her, I think you're probably nice. Underneath it all, I think you're kind and you're definitely brave. I just wish you hadn't been a soldier. And then slams a door in her face. And it's
fighting Daleks.
Yeah.
You have a problem with a soldier fighting Daleks? That makes no sense, including from this incarnation of the Doctor.
Well, yeah, and given that they are this resistance, this 31st century, I saw somewhere that it's the 31st century resistance to the Daleks taking over everything. Like they are just the small remnant remaining. Pretty much everybody would be a soldier by that point, fighting for humankind's survival. It's a weird take from the Doctor to be. He says some other things like that are somewhat hostile. Dry your eyes, Journey Blue. Crying's for civilians. He says very disdainfully. It's how we communicate with you lot. So, civilians are the ones who cry. That's how we communicate to soldiers who are all cruel, I guess. You don't like soldiers much. And he says, you don't need to be liked. You've got all the guns. It's a weird, overly hostile take. Yeah, I agree.
No, you're not a good man at the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. So he rescues her by dematerializing the TARDIS around her as her ship explodes. So that's how she gets aboard the TARDIS. So when they get aboard the mothership called the Aristotle, she's the first experience of the TARDIS's dimensionality is when she walks out of it and says it's smaller on the outside. And he says it's a bit more exciting when you go the other way, which I like that one. It's a good one. Then we get Danny Pink at Coal Hill School, classically. That's the school where the first Doctor's first companions were teachers. And he's teaching his class, and he's an ex-soldier. And when a student asks him if he's ever killed someone, he has this tear roll down his face.
Actually, he's asked, have you killed someone? And he's like, well, I was a soldier. Have you ever killed someone who's not a soldier? And that's where he shuts up and sheds a tear.
Do we ever get a resolution to we do?
This is setting up the season finale where we find out what happened.
Okay, because I didn't recall. Now, when Clara meets him, she's kind of rude to him. Like she says, you shoot people and cry about it afterwards. She doesn't realize he's had this happen, but that's still a weird thing to say to an ex-soldier. Like, it's weirdly hostile still, although she doesn't mean it that way.
Well, because he says something to the extent of, being a soldier is different in the military today than just that. Oh, and that's where she says, you shoot people and cry about it. And it's just like, that sounds like something that, first of all, would fit out of the Doctor's mouth in this episode to begin with.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I would never think of saying that to, someone who had served in war. I would never think of saying something like that.
Yeah.
No, and I don't, we haven't always had the name for post-traumatic stress disorder, but we've always had post-traumatic stress disorder. And and it doesn't matter what weapons you're using. Humans do not easily kill other humans. At least, I can't say maybe in a tribal society where you've been raised to do that, it's easier, but unless that's who you are, and no modern soldier in a modern military is, humans do not easily kill other humans. There were some studies done in the Vietnam War where they would find, and there were experiences in the Vietnam War where, despite the fact that the U.S. military had trained soldiers to kill, they would get over there and every single person in the unit would deliberately fire high. because they couldn't ease at first. They could not bring themselves to shoot another human being.
Right.
And it was found that those who did shoot other human beings, this is where the studies come in, either suffered tremendous post-mortality psychological issues because they felt so horrible for having killed another human being, or they were psychopaths who didn't care who they were killing.
Right. That would make sense. So, yeah, it just seems weirdly critical. So that's not a good foot to get off on with between Danny and Clara. So but there's still
but
this
then
romantic.
She starts coming on to him.
Yeah. I mean, she's very aggressive, which is good for Danny because he's very tentative with romantic. So that's about the only way they were ever going to go out. So the doctor shows up. I like the fact that he's carrying takeout coffee, like the takeaway. He's got the coffees that he had said at the end of the last episode that they were going to get coffee, and so without saying, drawing it on the chalkboard, this is that coffee.
They hang a lantern on that. Clara says, "Yeah, I sent you out for that 3 weeks ago. What happened? I got distracted."
Yeah. It was in Glasgow. She had to make her way back from Glasgow back to London on her own without the doctor. That would be a funny little short side story to see somewhere. So they go off back to he has come to get her to go back to this ship in the future to deal with this Dalek because he needs her. He realizes he can't deal with this Dalek the way he is, and so as he says that famous line, "She's my carer. She cares, so I don't have to." Which is a really, troubling line.
Well, it's also funny, and it also depends. This is a line where UK English differs from American English because we would not say she's my carer.
Right.
We would say in the old days we would say she's my caretaker.
Yes.
And these days the preferred expression, I guess, is she's my caregiver.
Right.
And both of those would actually work, with slight modifications of the line. She's my caretaker. She takes care so I don't have to. Or she's my caregiver. She gives the care so I don't have to.
Yep.
Right. There's also a little bit of the doctor kind of very clearly disdaining Clara's looks and beauty, and very making it clear, Doctor is not her boyfriend anymore. What are you smiling at? I wasn't smiling at anything. You were smiling at nothing. I'd almost say you were in love, to be honest. And he says, "Well, you're not a young woman anymore."
Yeah, him hinting about or picking up on the fact that she's interested in Danny Pink.
Yes.
Right. I want to know why did the future humans decide the Doctor is at all qualified to go into a Dalek? There's this leap in the plot from where they introduce him to the Dalek to where he gets Clara and brings her back. And I thought, oh, that's clever in that it gets Clara into the story without us having to watch a scene where he's like, okay, I'm going to go away now, but then I'm going to come back. And, we just leapt right over that, him explaining to them why he's leaving. But yes, he will come back to work on the Dalek. But we leapt over too much because Journey Blue knows about the Doctor when he materializes his ship on the Aristotle is that he's got a ship that can materialize on the Aristotle and he calls himself a doctor. Why would you think this guy is qualified to treat a Dalek? There should be some. That's the conversation I want to see. I don't want to see the housekeeping conversation about I'm going to go get Clara so she can be involved in the story. I want to see what's the basis. I mean, what did the Doctor offer? How does this happen?
Well, Journey has this line where she says, "He's a doctor, and we have a patient, don't we, Uncle?" She says to the guy in charge, who's apparently her uncle. And it's like, but they don't know that the Daleks have organic components inside, like because that's a surprise to them later, right?
They've just learned that it has organic components, but they haven't diagnosed what's wrong with it, and they don't know if the problem is biological or mechanical. I mean, I want to know what was running through the Doctor's head when he agreed to this.
All of that is a giant leap where like they just kind of like just accept it, moving on. We got a lot of episodes to do after this, so we don't want to spend any time talking about that. And they just kind of ask us to accept it. Okay. So it's a broken Dalek, and he's broken in a good way, which is that he thinks all Daleks must be destroyed. So damaged it's gone good, and so we get Journey to the Center of the Dalek. There's a moleculon nucleizer or something that shrinks. It's a shrinker. It shrinks people down to teeny tiny.
And it's a little capsule, kind of like the submarine in the original Fantastic Voyage.
Yep.
Right.
What I do like is they stress you must breathe normally. Like when you're on an airplane and they say they're demonstrating how the mouth cups work and just say breathe normally. And here too, except if you don't, then you will explode as you're being miniaturized, which makes no sense. But it still adds some nice drama, and you see them as they're being shrunk. Everybody's trying to breathe normally, and when they get down to tiny size, the people in charge check in with them, and it's like, "How are you? We're okay. Nobody popped."
Because that makes you think, that must have happened once or twice.
Exactly.
It sounded to me like it happens frequently. They seemed rather relieved that nobody popped.
It's interesting that the way they get into the Dalek is through the eye stalk. So apparently that blue glowing bit on the end of the eye stalk is not a glass lens. It's
a force field of some kind.
Yeah. I was thinking almost like the aqueous fluid of the eye, that sort of thing.
And that was probably what they were going for. Although it more of an effect of being windblown, or the kind of combination of windblown and swimming through it.
Yeah.
It's kind of what they went for.
Kind of trippy on the way in.
Yeah. The vitreous fluid of the eye.
That's what it's vitreous. Thank you. I was trying to think of the word. So one of these soldiers wants to get inside. He ticks off the antibodies, basically, because, like we said, the Daleks he gets vaporized. And the Doctor has this, as these antibodies are coming at him, the Doctor kind of says, stand still, and starts scanning him. Everyone thinks he's trying to save him, but the Doctor...
And he tosses him a small object and says, swallow that.
Yeah.
And he does. And he's like, what now? And then that's when he gets disintegrated. And it turns out that everyone's assumption that what looked like the pill the guy took was to help him in some way. No, it's not to help him at all. It's so the Doctor can track where they take his remains.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very cold about it, very uncaring. Whereas like the 10th or 11th Doctors at least would have said, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, or something like that.
Yeah.
They would have looked sad about it, but they, I can't save you.
The thing, he was already dead at that point. They said, it hadn't happened yet.
Right. And
yeah.
I can accept that, but the Doctor's uncaring way about it, yeah.
Yeah, this is an instance where I didn't mind that alienness. That's okay. I mean, given the direction they're going, I thought that was a reasonable implementation of it. And it does allow them to follow the remains to the Death Star's trash compactor.
Yep.
Right. Yes, to where there's a protein slurry that the living parts of the Dalek live off of. They apparently digest the bodies of their enemies that they've killed. Some of them anyway. And so the Doctor makes a point, like when this is the least secure part of the Dalek. There's no point in scanning this area.
The dead.
Yeah. No, you don't need to guard the dead. Although later on in this season, we find out that's not exactly true, is it? Guarding the dead actually is something you have to do. They're covered in goo. Did you notice the little bit of a leap that they make? They're covered in goo. Then they crawl out of it, and suddenly they're all dry. Hair is blow dried.
They went through some tunnel access point, something or another that just happened to be perfectly warm, and
dries off the goo, and blow
their
dries
clothes look
Clara's,
absolutely perfect, and blow
dries Clara's hair. So So the Doctor ends up fixing the Dalek's broken bit, which returns it to normal, which is normal for a Dalek, is to hate everything else. And I was kind of like, could you not have maybe foreseen that, like, if you fix what's broken, the Dalek is going to go back to the way it was? I thought
Well,
that was
especially since what was broken was basically radiation poisoning. The Dalek was being radiation poisoned. And so if Dalek being good is because it's poisoned, keep it poisoned. Maybe minimize the poisoning so it doesn't kill it quite so quickly.
Right. Like maybe close it most of the way, but not all the way. I don't know.
Which, by the way, the Sonic is now also a welder, apparently.
Yes. It's a great welding. Sonic welding is a thing. So, I'll buy that. So, Clara has a nice a moment where she slaps the Doctor, even though because even though they're going to die, he's a bit pleased to be proven right.
Yeah, I love he looks at her and she's glaring at him and he says, "What's that look?" And she says, "This is the look you get when you're about to be slapped by me." And then she slugs him.
Yeah, and it's this. She's not wrong because what she's upset is he just looks kind of smug at. See, I was right. Daleks cannot be redeemed. Daleks are evil. And she's like, we're gonna die, and you're happy that you're right. Proven right as we die. That's a terrible thing.
And she also challenges him and says, "Is that really the lesson we've learned today?" And what she's hinting at is actually there's a different lesson to learn, which is Daleks can be good.
Yes.
And so let's try to exploit that.
Right. And so he decides that what to do is we need to remind the Dalek of why it was good, because it had said it had been left floating in space and saw the birth of a star, and it reminded it of that life always finds a way, and that's where dinosaurs come from. So
must have been floating in space for hundreds of thousands of years, because that's how long it. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on the size of the star, but seeing a starborn is not a day-long outing.
No,
put it that way.
Well, and it is an old style Dalek. I mean, this is the same vintage of the one from the 2005, the Ninth Doctor season Dalek episode. So it could be related to that. Been out there a long time. So they have to go distract the Dalek while the Doctor does his mind meld with it, and there's the other soldier that's there, Gretchen, who is cannon fodder, red shirt.
Yeah, but she is nice. I like her.
Yeah.
So her name is Gretchen Allison Carlisle, and we know that because they're in a crunch, and the only way that anyone can see out of it, which she sees, is I'm going to set a repelling line so we can get up in the Dalek to where we need to be, but that will injure the Dalek and it will trigger another antibody swarm like the one that killed Ross. And after carefully quizzing Clara and the Doctor about, is there any other way, and is this going to be worth it, meaning my sacrificing myself, she then says, okay, my name is Clara, or is Gretchen Allison Carlisle, build something and name it after me. And then she shoots the gun, and they get up, and she suddenly is in heaven having tea with Missy.
Right. Yep. Everyone who in every episode so far this season, going in for the future episodes, this season, at least one person who dies per episode ends up with Missy in heaven. Although she says, "Do something good and name it after me," and that's I think that's key because of the whole "Am I the good?" question. And and the Doctor says, "I'll do something amazing, I promise." And so he notice he doesn't say, "I will do something good." So there's that doubt in the Doctor's mind about his being good. So
there's also an interesting discussion in here when he's talking to Rusty. So Rusty is the name he gives to the Dalek. And he's talking to Rusty, and he says he starts referring to his time as the first Doctor. And we've got an interesting admission here where he says, when I originally left my home world, I was just running. I wasn't trying to do anything good or anything like that. But then I went to Skaro. And that's the second Doctor Who story, is where he goes to Skaro for the first time. And I met you lot, and I realized I needed to do, good stuff. So his at least from his perspective, he doesn't know anything about the, pre-Hartnell doctors, but from his perspective, it was meeting the Daleks that turned the Doctor into a hero. And that's extremely consistent with what we see in the earliest episodes of Doctor Who, where in the very first episode, An Unearthly Child, he's like a criminal. I mean, he literally kidnaps Ian and Barbara. He is super secretive and paranoid and not at all a hero. That doesn't begin to emerge until he does go to Skaro.
That's true. That's true. And when before he starts seeing the Doctor's memories, Clara is meanwhile with Journey. They're trying to turn on the bits of the Daleks, brain back up that has the memories that made it good, the memories of the stars. Yep. And brain pal, that's right.
The term from John Scalzi.
Yes. And so they see the console. It's kind of a very funny computer thing because she's like, the bits where the lights are out, that's probably the parts that aren't working. Maybe it's just the bulbs are out.
Yeah.
It could be, but I hope not. So she starts running around there banging things. That's how you make it work. And
percussive maintenance always works.
Always works, yes. Reboot. And then the Dalek sees into the Doctor's mind, and it starts with this thing where we think it's right, it's seeing the good. I see beauty, I see divinity, I see hatred. Pure hatred is good and it's beautiful.
Well, of the Daleks is good.
Right. And that's the part that the Dalek holds on to, and that the Doctor's like, no, that's not the lesson here. That hatred is good. And but there's no way to pull it back. But the Doctor is kind of he says, no, you must see more than that. There must be more than that. He's afraid that all that's left in him is that hatred. I think that's where we get that question where he asks Clara, "Am I good? Is that all that's left of me? Is that
it? Yeah.
Yeah." So Rusty ends up hating the Daleks, and the Daleks he gets the Daleks to retreat from this ship that they've been boarding and attacking, and they survive another day. The Aristotle.
And Rusty survives many more days because he's going to come back at the very end of the 12th Doctor's time, having become a legend as a Dalek fighting Dalek.
Yep.
Right. That's right. And we've seen, Dalek rebels before where the Doctor turns some Daleks against the other Daleks. In the second Doctor story, the one where he meets Victoria.
Evil of the Daleks.
Evil of the Daleks, right.
He de-evils a bunch of them.
Yes.
As well as the seventh Doctor story, the revelation of the Daleks. Remembrance, excuse me. Remembrance of the Daleks.
Yes, where we meet the Hand of Omega. Was that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is a recurring theme in the Doctor trying to create a Dalek resistance. It lasts a little while. So the Doctor says, Victory would have been a good Dalek. This isn't Victory. Victory would have been making a good Dalek. And Rusty says, I am not a good Dalek. You are a good Dalek. And it's that play on words of, you're not good Dalek. You're a good Dalek because Daleks hate and you hate. So it's not a very happy ending for the Doctor in this case.
Or the audience.
Yeah. It's not a very satisfying victory in the end. And then that's where we wrap things up. Where he rejects Journey from coming, as we said, and he takes Clara back to the Coal Hill School, where she's gonna go out for a drink with Danny, I guess.
Yeah.
And Danny says, I thought you have a rule against soldiers. And she goes, no, not at all. So apparently Clara, at least.
Not me.
Yeah. Yes. She's apparently changed her mind, or at least become more open.
No. She didn't have a problem with soldiers. She was just she was attempting banter when she first met him, and it was just not clicking given his, he really does kill people and cry about it afterwards.
Right.
But that was attempted playful banter on her part. She never had a rule against soldiers, or she wouldn't have been coming on to this guy.
That's true. Right. That's true. So any last thoughts, Father Cory?
Nothing here.
Jimmy?
So even though I'm largely down on a lot of the way this episode was handled, I mean, it's not terrible. It is, after all, a remake of an episode that was, quite well received, and it has some of the same elements, even if, okay, so A New Hope and The Force Awakens are different. How? I mean, so there's some stuff to like in this episode, and Moffat's signature dialogue is on display in this. There's a bit where the Doctor has first gotten Clara to the Aristotle in the future, and he's showing her Rusty for the first time, and she realizes that it's behaving like a good Dalek. And Clara says, "What do we do with a moral Dalek then?" And the Doctor says, "We get into its head." And she's like, how do you get into a Dalek's head? That was not a metaphor.
Yeah. That's the thing is this, even the episodes where I'm critical of something even vital to the story, Moffat is just so good at the dialogue and the quippy banter that there's a lot of fun, a lot to like. And for my criticisms of this, I have to say I did enjoy this episode. I don't want to leave the impression that I did not like the episode. I just don't like the Doctor's attitude toward the soldiers. I just don't like that prejudice against soldiers. But other than that, I enjoyed this. So, all right. So if that's all we have for today, we'll take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Doctor Who, including Chris E., James S., Jonathan H., Ryan Z., and Paul E. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. And you could join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And we'd like to thank Victor Lambs, who edits the show for us every week. So what do you think of Into the Dalek, this 12th Doctor story? You can comment on the show at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or send an email to drwho@sqpn.com. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing, it's a special treat, the second Doctor story, The Web of Fear, which has just been released as an all-new animated version because it's one of those lost episodes. So I'm looking forward to that.
It has a lost episode.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. It's missing one of the bits. Was missing. So they've animated it, and so this is just released. So I'm really looking forward to this. So until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thanks, Tom.
Father Cory Sticha, thank you as well.
Thank you, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest, and remember, resistance is futile.